against the brutal religious dictatorship and despotic mullahs and have sacrificed so much. 1,500 martyrs, 4,000 wounded, 12,000 arrested during the nationwide protests of last November and this January. Today's rally is also on the anniversary of the 1979 revolution, and on the 41st anniversary, the people of Iran are chanting in their protests, "Death to the despots, be it the Shah or the mullahs and their leaders Khamenei." The January protests followed the bloodiest crackdown of protests that reached a climax at the end of 2019. 1,500 defenseless protesters were killed during these protests. They were shot from helicopters and rooftops, and machine guns were used on unarmed civilians. Corruption, unemployment, and high living costs have given way to an explosive state in Iranian society. The people of Iran revolted against the Shah in 1979, but the revolution was hijacked by Islamic fundamentalism. None of the promises of the revolution have been honored or fulfilled. In fact, repression is far more extreme. Yet the repression of the Iranian regime extends much further than Iran. The supreme leader, Khamenei himself, claims, "If we do not draw our front lines against the enemy on the streets of Iraq and Syria, we would have to fight the enemy on the streets of Kermanshah, Hamadan, and Tehran." And so, with the collapse of the Islamic Republic, which is now so close, not only will the people of Iran be celebrating, but so will the people of Iraq, Syria, Yemen, and Lebanon, who will no longer be the victims of Iranian fundamentalism and terrorism. The United Kingdom, as a respected member of the UN Human Rights Council and permanent member of the UN Security Council, can and must play a leading role in adopting a firm international policy against the regime in Iran. The UK government should take the following steps as part of its firm policy on Iran. Prescribe the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps and the regime's Ministry of Intelligence and Security in their entirety as terrorist organizations. Work with international allies in the UN and the EU to hold the regime and its leaders to account for their atrocities, including the killing of over 1,500 protesters and the brutal crackdown on their recent popular uprisings. To work with international allies at the UN and the EU to pressure the regime to immediately release all political prisoners and those arrested in the recent popular uprisings. Ask the UN to immediately send fact-finding missions to Iran to investigate the cases of those killed, wounded, and imprisoned. Recognize the Iranian people's democratic aspirations, their organized resistance, the PMOI and the NCRI, and their right to overthrow the religious dictatorship for a free and democratic Iran. To back the popular uprisings in Iran and support the 10-point democratic platform for the future free Iran as put forward by the NCRI President-elect Mrs. Maryam Rajavi as a viable alternative to the current religious dictatorship ruling Iran. Thank you for gathering here today to show your unending support. First, we have a group of women who are supporters of the resistance, and they're here to give a speech focusing on the situation of women in Iran. Please give them a warm welcome.